Our Holy Gospel this morning comes from Mark, the first chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
So Jesus and his disciples went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus entered the synagogue and began teaching. And all who heard him were astonished and amazed, for he taught as one having authority, and not like a scribe. But there was a man in their synagogue who had unclean spirit, and he called out to Jesus, "What have you come to do with us, Jesus, son of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? For I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent and come out of him." And at once the man began to convulse, and he cried out, but the spirit came out of him. Now all who saw this were amazed at what they had seen and began asking one another, "What is this? Is it a new kind of teaching? And with authority, for he commands even unclean spirits, and they obey him."
Oh, sorry.
And the word about Jesus and his fame began to spread all over the region of Galilee. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
And you can go. Please be seated. So, as I mentioned last week with the fish, we had this entire theme of putting things in nets. So, today you have seaweed, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I want to ask you, what are your unclean spirits? What are the unclean spirits that you need to be cleansed from right now? What are the unclean spirits that plague you, that you pray about, that torment you? Because we all have some. It could be a health issue, whether that's physical or mental or emotional. There are unclean spirits of arthritis and cancer, depression, bipolar, heart disease, addiction, and the list goes on. And they all plague us in one way or another. And I can honestly tell you that not one of those disorders or diseases or unclean spirits or whatever you want to call them is somehow worse than another. Sometimes the unclean spirit we need to be cleansed from is just an attitude. I know for me personally that it's often negative thoughts and ideas that I need to be cleansed from because of a certain person or situation that even when their name is mentioned or as I'm driving to that place, I start to be filled with dread or reluctance or suspicion or hostility. And I realize I need an attitude adjustment. Maybe the unclean spirit that needs to be cleansed from you is a relationship, one that has caused so much pain that you cannot seem to forgive that person and to move on from it and to form new relationships because you're stuck on this one. Because we all have had unclean spirits at times. Sometimes they remain with us forever, and sometimes those unclean spirits are able to come and go quickly in our lives. So I want you to take a moment and on your seaweed, write down some of those unclean spirits in your lives. And you can be vague, that's okay. And again, there's pens in every woman's purse. So maybe you knew right away what you needed to write down. What is that unclean spirit that you need to be cleansed from? Maybe you're still thinking. Maybe you want 5 seaweeds in an hour in order to write down all the things that have been that have been plaguing you. And if that's you, the person who needs multiple sheets of paper and many times, you have probably heard more times than you ever wish to hear. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I'm here to tell you that that adage is wrong. I hate that saying. That saying is a bunch of bull. And I would normally have stronger language for it. It is wrong for so many reasons because first off, God is not the one who is giving you these things. Jesus did not give the man in our gospel lesson the unclean spirit, and God is not the one who has given you illness or a negative attitude or poor relationships or whatever it is that plagues you. Just like God is not the one who set fire to the church or has caused you to have 3 deaths in your family within 1 year, or that your roof is leaking while your basement is flooding and your car breaks down and you've lost your job. That is not God. That is life. God is not the one giving you more than you can handle. And that saying is also wrong because it's downright hurtful. Because when you are at these points in your life where you feel like unclean spirits are just constantly coming and plaguing you, that you cannot get a break, and you just want to break down and cry, or that you just want to hide in your bed, or maybe get a plane ticket and fly far, far away from it all. When you feel that way, hearing this adage makes you feel like somehow you aren't strong enough to handle these things. And it can cause more harm than good. Please never say that phrase again. Because people say it with good intentions, of saying that it will be okay, you'll get through this. But say, you'll be okay, you'll get through this. Don't blame it on God. And don't make it seem like they have to do it alone. Because Jesus did not give this man an unclean spirit, but he did command it to leave him. God does not give us more than we can handle because these things do not come from God. But God does give us people and a support network of a community of friends and families and church members that we can lean on, part of the body of Christ, that we can come to when these unclean spirits make their presence known in our lives. God gives us support so that we do not have to handle it alone. And so do me a favor and take your seaweed and crumple it up. Don't rip it up, just crumple it up. And throw it.
That's it. Strunk isn't going to let us in.
But do me now another favor. Find one that's landed near you.
3 over here.
Get one for me, Lily.
This is yours.
Oh, it is mine.
Okay, thank you.
Is this yours?
I have one.
Open it up.
Everybody need one?
I got it.
Yeah, give me one.
There's a few extra lying around. You might find one later. But uncrumple it and pray for that person this week. Someone that you don't know. Pray for them and the unclean spirits that are in their lives so that they don't have to handle them alone. And also know that you don't have to handle it alone. That there are people that you can lean on, that there's people that can support you. And that God is not the one who has given us these unclean spirits. But God has given us people to help us, to support us, and so that we are not alone. Because that man was in the synagogue with the community to support him. And be in a community to support you. Amen.